everyone for coming. This is GLP session number 16. And we're happy to have Ram and Padma join us over here, where we examine good living practices from the practices that are described in his book, Good Living Practices. This is an interactive session that we are doing every month on the first Sunday of the month. And it explains how the sciences of yoga and Ayurveda coupled with modern science may be applied to our lives and how we can achieve optimal health and happiness by that. So I will be moderating the session and Ram will be answering your questions. And in this session, we will discuss 3 practical GLP tools. Each tool will address one aspect of individuality. We will, as a group, incorporate and practice these 3 tools this entire month. And this was based on a request that we had from one of the viewers. And so we thought that, it was a good idea, a good suggestion. And so Ram will be talking about that. And so without much further ado, Ram, please go ahead and
Sure.
Let's get started.
Okay. Thank you, Radhika. Good morning, everybody. Namaste. And once again, it's a great pleasure to be here. And as Radhika mentioned, so there was I think there were 2 or 3 people who mentioned saying that all this is fine, but is there a way that we can practically apply these good living practices? And so in the last 15 sessions, so this is the 16th session, in the last 15 sessions, we actually covered all the concepts. And so this month, what I thought was, we will incorporate 3 of the tools as a group. You must have all heard about the term satsang. Satsang actually, it's both in yoga and Ayurveda, it's actually a Vedantic word. Satsang actually means, and the term is loosely mentioned as people who gather together for doing a bhajan or for doing some kind of a prayer or for a ritual, okay? But satsang is not just about ritual or prayer. Satsang actually has got a broader definition. And what it means is getting like-minded people together and for a cause, okay, for a cause. Because what happens is, whenever you have a person doing something, there's generally a low motivation or there's a less of an interest to do it singly, okay? But if you know that somebody else is doing with you, somebody else is supporting you on the journey, then that motivation actually becomes very inspiring, okay? And that's the reason why in a satsanga or in a group like effort, people try to do the same thing so that they know that they can support each other on that journey. So starting this month, what I thought was we'll incorporate 3 tools and we'll do it as a satsangi, and in the sense that we'll all practice it. Of course, it's up to you, but know that somebody else is doing it along with you. Okay, so that provides you the motivation, that provides you the enthusiasm, that provides you the zeal, and that provides you that awareness that somebody else is doing with you. So there's this strength that, okay, if something goes wrong, maybe I can depend on the other people and let them know, what is it that I'm doing incorrectly so that I can get the feedback from them. Okay, so with that, let me share the screen and talk about those 3 tools. So in the past 15 sessions, we actually spoke about, so just to recapitulate, okay, so it becomes easy for people to understand, especially the people who missed some of the sessions. We talk about mindfulness eating, we talked about mindfulness cooking, we saw the benefits of physical exercise, mental training exercise to strengthen the brain, and then we talked about selfless service to bring harmony to both the body, mind, and emotions. We discussed about bringing in harmonious impressions to the 5 senses, the 5 sensory organs, because I said very clearly that whatever we bring through these 5 sensory organs is what is going to keep us resilient, what is going to keep our immunity very strong. We discussed the importance of fasting and how it brings harmony to the mind, to the body, and to the emotions. We discussed sleep, nidra, as one of the most important facets of our life to boost immunity at all 3 levels of individuality: physical, mental, and emotional. And I also talk about the benefits of chewing as one of the good eating practices to improve immunity at all 3 levels. In one of the sessions, we also spoke about managing blood sugar levels, and Chandarji, who was in the audience, actually shared his experience, which was really, very, very thought-provoking and very useful. We discussed about negative emotions and how it affects our journey on the path to achieve balance at all three levels of individuality. We discussed about the importance of when and where we eat our food as good eating practices. And in the last session, actually, we spoke about the importance of the brain-colon nexus and the need for having a daily bowel movement in order to achieve immunity at all three levels. So starting this month, what I thought was we will look into some practical aspects of good living practice. So these are the tools that we have already seen in the last 15 sessions, okay? What I did was I picked up each tool from one of the aspects. And we'll discuss, once again, we'll discuss some of the importance of that. And then what we'll do is we'll see if we can practice this for the next 29 days or 30 days till we come again next month, okay? I'm not going to be policing. I'm not a policeman here. I'm not going to be policing each and every one of you. And I'm not going to ask for a feedback from you every day saying that, how are you doing it? Are you on the journey? And is there any problems? No. If you want to inculcate into your own lives, please, you're most welcome to do that. But make sure that you get serious about it. Make sure that you indulge in it. Make sure that you inculcate it. And make sure that it actually brings strength to all three levels of your own self, body, mind, and emotions. And the good thing is, please note that there are others who will be doing it. I will not know about others, but I'll be doing it. Padma will be doing it. So we'll be doing it with you. Okay. So whoever is doing it, just know that there's somebody else practicing these tools along with you. And I like this. This is going to be like a sangha.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so what are the key tools for the month of March? Okay. And we have discussed this. I'm going to bring them back again to the table. For the physical aspect, so we're going to be looking at three different aspects. For the physical aspect, I'm going to be asking everyone to practice chewing, okay? Because I'm not, now remember, this month, I'm not asking you what you're going to eat, when are you going to eat, or where are you going to eat. All I'm saying is, let's practice the tool of chewing. So we'll incorporate chewing as a physical tool, and will ensure that the food that we are eating becomes very soft, okay, extremely soft as a puree, okay, before we swallow it, okay? So remember, the more you chew, the less you will end up eating, and the more calories you'll burn during that process, okay? So chewing has got a lot of benefits. It helps to promote. So remember one thing, even though we call chewing as a physical tool, inbuilt into the practice of chewing, there is also a benefit to the mind and there's a benefit to the emotions. Research studies have shown that chewing actually helps promote good sleep. So a good mental practice. It helps to defog the brain. Okay, so it's a good emotional practice as well. So even though it's a physical tool, notice how it's empowering your mind and it's empowering your emotions as well. It sharpens the brain and it helps you overcome negative emotions. So even though it may seem and even though it may look like a physical tool, what you're doing in your mouth with that food actually helps to strengthen the brain. It helps to strengthen the emotions as well. And remember, for those of us who experience sort of a what I call fogging of the brain, especially in the mornings during these winters, okay, when we get up in the morning, our minds are not very sharp. One of the reasons is because what happens is there is generally, because we are lying flat, there's generally a tendency, especially as we age, there's a tendency for the blood to decrease its flow into the brain, okay? There's a close association between the flow of the blood and the promotion of what I call freshness or awareness in the brain. And when that does not happen, that's when we experience brain fog, okay? One of the ways to improve physical blood flow into the brain is chewing. You may not know that, but research studies show that. And Ayurveda yoga talked about that several years ago, thousands of years ago. The chewing, they didn't say it helps blood flow, but they said it helps the brain. Okay, so it allows you to eat less, because what happens is the more you chew, the more saliva you're going to generate. The more saliva you're going to generate, when you swallow that morsel of food, you are going to feel full. Okay, and when you're going to feel full after 3 or 4 morsels, you're going to end up eating less. Okay, not only that, The more you chew, what happens is you're going to burn more energy, which means then the more you expend your energy, the greater is the turnover of the fat cells in the body. Okay, and that becomes a natural way to lose fat. So one of the things I would like for you, so what is the outcome measure for chewing? Okay, what do we look for when you're doing this for the next 1 month? I would like for you to think about two things. Okay, and if you want, you can note it down. The first thing I want you to note down is, once you practice this on a daily basis, notice how much are you eating. Okay, has the quantity reduced in any way? So let's say if you're eating 4 breads or 4 chapatis or 4 naans, if you have the habit of eating in terms of bread, in terms of quantity, notice if you're chewing, has that quantity reduced? Okay, number one. And number two, if once you start this practice and you want to know that you're going to do it for the next 1 month, take your weight before you start this practice. Okay, and then if you want to, you can measure 15 days after you practice this and 30 days after you end this program. Okay, you're not going to end it, but when we meet next month, if you want, you can share. Has there been a loss of weight? Now, it may not be a great loss as provoked by fasting or continuous physical exercise, but what happens is it's a gentle loss, and gentle loss is what we want to achieve in our day-to-day lives. We don't want a drastic fall, but we want a gentle fall. And so you may have lost only 1 pound or 1.5 pounds, but that still is very, very good. Okay, so 2 outcome measures for chewing. Number 1, quantity, and number 2, your weight. All right. Now, how long to chew? As I said in one of my earlier talks, depends on what you're eating, but on an average, think about 25 to 30 counts. Okay, it again depends on the kind of food you're eating. So for example, if you have a habit of eating fresh salads, then fresh salads requires a lot of chews. 2 days ago, I had a bowl of salad, and I noticed that it took me nearly 40 counts in order to completely bring that spoon of salad into a soupy-like texture. Okay, so that requires a lot of counts. That requires a lot of chews. Okay, in general, if you're eating rice, if you're eating any curries, sabjis, or curries or something like that, it requires less chews. But on average, 25 to 30. Okay, so it's a great physical exercise, but along with that, it also builds your brain and it suppresses negativity. So very good exercise that we can start practicing. The second tool that I want all of us to practice is sleep. Okay, sleep is one of the pillars of life. As I said earlier in one of my lectures, it builds strength, it builds complexion, it brings a healthy growth. Okay, all of us need to have a proper, good quality sleep. Okay, minimal, at least 6 to 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Even if you get 5 to 6 hours of sleep, okay, let's say you're very busy and you're saying that you have only 5 hours of sleep. If those 5 hours of sleep are uninterrupted, not an abbreviated sleep, okay, it's uninterrupted, continuous sleep of 5 hours, that's good enough. Okay, and then you can build it slightly to 6 hours. Okay, but minimum 5 to 6 hours of good uninterrupted sleep in order to ensure that you are building immunity at all 3 levels: physical, mental, and emotional. Okay, because remember one thing, if you have any physical injuries or mental injuries come in the form of emotions. Okay, fear, worry, anxiety, anger, depression, all these are injuries to the brain at the mental level. Physical injuries are also happening. In the brain itself, we have a lot of damages to the brain. Nerve cells are getting destroyed, nerve connections are getting destroyed. In the physical body, if you have comorbid conditions, heart issues, lung issues, especially now in this season, allergies and all this, all these get rectified only when you have proper sleep. So during that uninterrupted sleep of 5 to 6 hours, the brain uses that energy to repair itself. Okay, so any kind of physical, mental damages get corrected when we have a proper sleep. So so sleep, again, even though it may seem like something at the level of the brain, remember one thing, it helps build physical body and it helps sustain your positive emotions. Okay, it curbs negativity, it sustains positive emotion. So sleep is another tool which built in itself works with all 3 levels of individuality. So chewing helps. Sleep is also another great tool. even though it's considered to be a mental tool, it helps build physical body and emotions as well. Okay, so please remember, let's try to maintain and cultivate a good quality sleep for the next 30 days. So what will we do as a practice? What we'll do is we'll try to hit the bed by 10:30. Okay, so whatever you do, I mean, if you want to bring this into your practice, if you want to work together as a Sangha, my suggestion is for the next 30 days, try to see if you can stop your work by 1 hour prior to your bed, by 9:30. Okay, even if you're working with an Indian team, I know a lot of software engineers complain saying that they have to work with Indian team and all that. See if you can for the next 30 days. I'm not doing this for myself, please. I'm doing it for, if you want to do it for your own health. This is for your own health, okay? You want, because you are the owner of your health, okay? You need to take that into your own hands. So if you think that, yes, I want to, take care of my health, I want to make sure that I'm going to be resisting all these kind of diseases, then, sleep becomes a very important topic. And so try to sleep by 10:30 p.m., which means then you'll have to eat by 7:30 in the evening, okay? So even though that's not a tool, I'm not advising that as a tool, but that's something in order for you to get good sleep by 10:30, make sure that you get a 3-hour window between dinner and sleep, okay? For the first few days, for people who are not used to sleeping earlier by 10:30, okay, you may not get sleep, but please believe me, one way to coax your body and brain to go to sleep is actually hitting the bed. And even if you don't fall asleep, try to keep that habit for 2-3 days. Hit the bed by 10:30. In about 2-3 days, believe me, the body will definitely go to that state of sleepiness, okay, when you hit the bed. So you're trying to, what we call sort of providing the cues to the body, saying that this is the time I need to go to bed, okay? It's called acclimatization, all right? So now the question is, what we have an outcome measure for chewing. What is the outcome measure for sleep? Okay, for sleep, the outcome measure would be when you wake up in the morning, okay, in your record book on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being very dull and 10 being very active, very optimistic. Notice where you are each day in the morning. That's going to be your outcome measure for a good quality sleep, okay? Again, you don't need to send the feedback to me. I'm not doing this, you don't have to keep me happy. This is for your own sake, for your health, for your benefits, all right? And then the third practice, we'll do it for this month, emotional practice, which again, built within this is benefits to the physical body and the mind as well, is one emotion that we'll take into account. And today for this one, what we'll do is, remember I told you about how we need to foster positive emotions and we need to curb negative emotions. So what exactly happens? It's so interesting. 2 weeks ago, I was giving a talk to the Homestead Parents, Teachers, Students Association, Homestead School District, PTSA. Okay, and one of the questions that came up is, what exactly happens when you have fear, worry, anxiety, anger? I mean, is that you? Do we explain to people that I am an angry person, or I'm a fearful person, or I'm a person with a lot of anxiety? I said, no, that's not the way to define yourself, because that's not who you are. Okay, you may be having that negative trait, but that's not who you are. You don't blame yourself for that, because remember one thing, behind every emotion, there is a physical interplay of hormones and neurochemicals. Okay, and you have the capacity to shift that neurochemical or that neurochemical imbalance. Okay, you have the capacity to shift that and you can bring it down. So usually what happens is these negative emotions are present when you have high levels of certain neurochemicals like dopamine, noradrenaline, endorphins, okay? Not endorphins, but things like noradrenaline and serotonin and cortisol. These are what we call the flight or fight response, okay? So imagine now, flight or fight response is for you to fight back, okay? Why should those neurochemicals be present in your brain when you're not fighting back? It's there because you have fear, worry, anger, anxiety. So those emotional traits keep your brain as though you're in flight or fight response, which is not good, okay? So to curb that cortisol levels, to curb that noradrenaline levels, okay, you need to bring up levels of good hormones or good neurochemicals like dopamine or noradrenaline or endorphins, okay? And how to bring that up? One way is to have good sleep, of course. The other way is to chew your food. And the third way, which you're going to practice, is feeling contented, satisfied. Okay, so let's nurture contentment for the next 1 month. So what does contentment exactly mean? Well, there are so many synonyms for contentment. Think about happiness, satisfaction, fulfillment, pleasure, cheerfulness, being gratified, being comfortable, being restful, being at peace or well-being, serenity, tranquility. I mean, there are so many synonyms for contentment. Can we experience that in every aspect of our life for the next 30 days? Whatever we do, every minute, every second, every hour throughout the week, throughout the day. Okay, it's an emotional state where you feel so contented, so happy, so blissful that you don't miss anything. Okay, and there is no wanting. You are satisfied. Okay, and then you know that everything is happening for a reason. Everything is happening with the divine grace. Okay, and so what happens is, whatever be the circumstance, you'll only find joy and satisfaction in that moment. Okay, so that's the tool that we'll cultivate for the next 1 month. Okay, and so now one of the ways to cultivate contentment is what I do. As a practice, what I do is, I'll say, before I hit the bed, I'll say, I'm content with life. I'm smiling. Life is good. Life is rewarding. Or I feel great now, here and now. Okay, so things like that, some kind of a positive affirmation that you think, affirmation itself is positive. So you cannot use both the words, but either a positive phrase or an affirmation saying that, or you can even say, Om Shanti, 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 or Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, or Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Isn't that such a beautiful phrase? Sarve Jana, Loka Samasta. That means everybody in this environment, in this universe, friends, colleagues, animals, birds, plants, everybody, let everybody be at peace. That we are wishing something well for others, that brings peace to us also. So now the question is, what is the outcome measure for contentment? For chewing, we said the number of counts, weight loss, okay, and the quantity of food. For sleep, we said on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel the next day morning? Okay, 1 being very dull and 10 being very blissful. So for contentment, again, you have to maintain this. Okay, the question is, how many days in the next 30 days or so till we meet the next month? In these number of days, how many days were there that you experienced complete happiness, smiling, and gratitude? Okay, maybe you can chart it out. Maybe today was not a good day. Okay, that's fine, no problem. It's not a good day. Second day, happiness, yes, throughout the day. So how often in a day or in a week or through the month did you feel happy? And how did you see that? How did you feel? How do you know that you felt happy? Think about sporting a smile, because one way that you generate happiness is when you sport a smile, or you express gratitude. Okay, so the days you sported a smile or you give a smile, and the days you express gratitude, that is something to be recorded. Okay, so these are the 3 tools that we'll practice as a Sangha this month. Okay, so just to recapitulate, for this month of March, okay, we are going to incorporate 3 tools. Each one may be an individual tool for that specific aspect of individuality. But remember, built within this tool is a benefit that's happening at all 3 levels. Okay, so physical may be chewing, but chewing also helps the mind and the emotions. Outcome measure will be weight. Mental tool will be sleep on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being dull, 10 being optimism. Okay, and emotional will practice contentment or satisfaction or gratitude or peace or blissfulness. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, measurement would be whether you feel measurable or whether you are smiling or express gratitude. Okay, so that's going to be for this month. And if you think this is a great exercise, okay, let me know, because this is what we'll do this month. And then next month we'll practice. I'll bring in some more tools and we'll combine this month's tool with the next month's tool. So that way, what's happening is by the third or fourth month, we are going to be bringing in more tools to bring in more positive or benefits to all three levels. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here and I'll take your questions. And if there are any suggestions, any advice, let me know how we can move this forward. If you think this is going to benefit, let's work together. Okay, I'm going to be doing this. Padma is going to be doing this. We are going to be starting this month. Okay, starting today. So you can join me. Now, the question is, what happens when, let's say, in the next 30 days, you have a social interaction, or you have been invited for a gathering, or let's say there was a party, or let's say there was a wedding invitation, or let's say there was a puja and you went there. Absolutely no problems. Please don't stop for all that. Okay. One disruption, one small disruption is not going to affect. We are looking at 30 days. For goodness, we are looking at 30 days. In 30 days, 1 or 2 disruptions is not going to affect anyway. Okay. So don't worry about that. You can still pay attention to, still do your social calls, still do your social gatherings, still do your dinners, whatever you have, parties and all that. But then, that's not going to be for the next 30 days. That's going to be 1 or 2 events. So let's come back to it. Okay. So with that, I'll take your questions. And if there's anything else, let me know.
Ram, this is a perfect, summary of what we have learned over the last 15 sessions. And it's one thing I've noticed is it's like a reminder for us. And it is also with the way you have explained it, it makes it like it gives us the practical aspect of how to incorporate these one by one into our lives. Well, we have talked about it, but many times it is sometimes it's like a lot of information.
True.
And moreover, it's like, oh, I know that we already talked about that, and so you don't know, even though it is something that you're familiar with, by bringing this aspect of how to incorporate, it is actually helping in providing you the tools to incorporate these things. I mean, like we have discussed the thing of chewing and everything, and this I will tell you from my experience is that I was listening to some video by the actor Madhavan, and he was saying something about drinking your food, and that actually is similar to and he said he had gone to Sweden to incorporate that, and then he came back and saying that these are things that we practice in Ayurveda in our field in India, and these things the Western people are taking and doing it. Why don't we practice it at home? And he was giving like a TED talk on it. It was very, and it brought me to what you are, telling us to do. You are facilitating in these sessions. So that was very, very important. Nice. The second thing that I wanted to say is to the group is that satsanga is, especially in these days of COVID and everything, even though the social media has brought everybody together, it is, earlier we used to get together and everything, and we are not able to do that. But know that you are not alone. Same as what Ram and Padma are saying, I will be practicing this in the next 30 days. And to remind you, I have to remind myself every time I sit down to eat that I have to chew my food.
Right.
And it's something that I have to do consciously, and I forget. Sometimes when I'm very hungry or I'm distracted or something like that, but then Ram's face comes to my head, and it tells me that I have to practice chewing my food, and it's a conscious effort that you have to do. So do not be angry with yourself or upset with yourself. It is something that is natural, and you have to bring it under balance. Right. The last thing that I want to say is, he was talking about the mental, like contentment, and there are so many stresses. That is, this having the stress is the constant that we are going to have in our lives. How we manage the stress and bring the contentment into our lives is what is important. And these tools, and I will tell you this from my experience, last night I could not sleep for some reason. I was not stressed or anything. I just could not sleep, and I barely got about 3 hours sleep. This morning, it showed up in my sugar, my count. And normally it is, under control. And today it was a little bit, I knew exactly the reason why, because I had not had a full sleep. And
right.
it was, and it was hard and I tried my level best. Finally, I got a little bit of sleep. I was reading, I tried the calming atmosphere and everything. So these things will happen. Yeah, and it's just like the spring level maintains, how you are able to see the level, it goes this way or that, and then you try to bring that bubble into the center. It is important for us to remember that, life is a journey, and you are not alone. But it is also up to you, like what Ram was saying. We are not going to police you or anything like that. Did you do it or did you not do it? There are going to be consequences. No, but if it is up to you, just like we cannot eat if another person is hungry, we cannot fulfill him, or he's not going to get full if we eat. You have to eat, you have to do that, you have to practice it, but you have all our support, all the people who are here as a community. We will do it together. And if you have any questions during this journey, please do not hesitate. Send us an email to contact us at northbaytemple.org. And we will remember to include that or discuss that. If you're having any this thing, we will discuss that. We are there to help you. We will provide the solution. And so that is very, very important. And so now I'm going to open it up to any questions that the audience has.
You can unmute yourself and raise your questions if you have any.
Ram sir, this is Sriram.
Hi.
Yeah, usually we need 7 to 8 hours sleep, or 6 to 8 between sleep.
Right.
But there are some people practice like they do power naps and lazy naps. What I call is sitting in the couch and sleeping for half an hour, 1 hour, and then they think that is added to 6-7 hours. Is that okay or not?
No, it's not. It's not, because when I say 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep, we are talking from a given point. Let's say 6:30 to another 6 hours, so 12:30, or 8:30 to another 6 hours, whatever it is. Okay, but if you are sleeping for about half an hour in the couch in the afternoon, and then you have the entire afternoon off, you're doing some activity, and then you have only 3 hours of sleep, and then you say, oh yeah, but then I had 1 hour sleep in the afternoon. But yeah, 1 hour sleep in the afternoon was sleep in the afternoon, but then you broke it up. There was a big gap of another 8 hours before you went to sleep for your actual sleep. Okay, that is that's an interrupted sleep. So whenever we talk about, so what sleep researchers, any sleep research design always calls for an uninterrupted sleep. Uninterrupted sleep is where you have at least, because even to measure, the reason why we call it uninterrupted sleep is because to measure any electrical activity in the brain, you need to have the brain very quiet for at least minimum of 4 to 5 hours to get a good recording. Okay, this 15 minutes, 30 minutes doesn't help in getting good recordings. So that's the reason why we say when we talk about uninterrupted sleep, we have to include at least 5 to 6 hours of continuous sleep. Okay, now that doesn't mean that you should not sleep in the afternoon. Now, I think we talked about that during the sleep lecture. Okay, I think it was GLP 7 or 8 that we talked about sleep. And I mentioned about afternoon naps, but I didn't talk about sleep though. I said nap. There's a difference between that. A nap is what, in terms of yoga, we call it yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is where something, it's a restful sleep, okay, but it's not a complete sleep. It's enough to give you some amount of energy to the brain so that you can move forward with your work in the afternoon, probably because, of the kind of food that you ate, or maybe because of your appetite, or maybe because of your digestion, you feel sleepy after food, okay? And so you cannot, And when you sleep up, when you feel sleepy after food, your brain is not active. It wants to take rest. There's no point in forcing yourself to do some work if your brain is not active. Okay, so the best thing is just take a nap. Yoga talks about it. Ayurveda also talks about it. We don't talk about it as sleep. We talk about it as a nap. Okay, a short nap of 15 to 20 minutes, which is very powerful because it helps to rest the brain. It helps to bring down the flight or fight hormones. At the same time, it builds immunity and makes you active so that you can move for the rest of the day. But don't count that as part of your actual sleep program. Okay. Yes, Chandarji, your hand is raised.
I'm not sure if I've asked this question before, but my question is, when you talk about 3 hours gap between the dinner and the sleep, and my understanding of Ayurveda is, it also talks about 3 hours when you get up in the morning. So before you have a breakfast, give 3 hours. Then you have a 45 minutes between having water and the breakfast. So someday maybe you can explain that how to achieve that optimally, of what time you can have then lunch and salads, and what kind of gaps are needed and what are good and not. So
sure,
someday when you have time.
Sure, I think next month when we talk about bringing in the tool of timings, I'll explain that. But I did, in GLP 14, I think 13 or 14, I did talk about when the timings about the meals, Chandarji, and I did mention, and yeah, we have a clear-cut rationale in Ayurveda about meal timings. And the beauty about that is, even though Ayurveda didn't talk about clock genes and environmental influences and all that, it's now supported by evidence-based studies. So whatever Ayurveda spoke about in terms of gaps, meal timings and all that, it's supported by evidence-based studies. And I think it was in session 14 or session 13 that I talked about that. But next month, I'm going to be talking about when as a tool, practical tool. And maybe I'll once again reiterate those timings.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Just a follow-up to that question asked by Mr. Chandar. Suppose some people have the habit of, in India, we all would have definitely practiced the same, having late dinners, like just before going to bed, and then just after the dinner, immediately we go to bed, right? So does the body get accustomed to that kind of consistent way of lifestyle? Is it still okay? Or do we need to because sometimes even here in US, like when we go for the office, we may take calls, we may come home late, and we may just relax and then have the dinner late. But if it is like constantly, if I'm having dinner at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the night, and then relax for half an hour and go to sleep, is that still manageable? Okay. Or like, do we need to really have that three hours of gap?
So remember one thing, there is a reason why at certain times of the day or of the evening, there are certain neurochemicals being released. Okay, so when we talk about a gap between dinner and sleep, what happens is the brain, actually, when I talk about clock genes, the brain releases certain neurochemicals, okay, especially things like melatonin, that induces the body to go to sleep, that induces the brain to say that it's time to sleep, okay? The problem is the melatonin cannot function optimally if there is food in the stomach, okay, number one. And number two, the minute you have food in the stomach, melatonin levels tend to not get released at the proper time. Okay, even though the brain is saying the sun is no longer there, it's dark, we need to release melatonin, but the problem is there is enough food in the stomach that's preventing the release of melatonin. So over time, what happens is the body gets accustomed, the brain is not accustomed, the body gets accustomed to it. And then what happens is there is this, what we call the disruption between the brain and the gut axis. Okay, so this disruption of the brain-gut axis is what leads to metabolic disturbances. Okay, so you may not see those disturbances now. For some people, thank God, touch wood, if they are very strong, if they have very good genes, you may not see the disruption happening immediately. You may not see the disruption maybe for months together or even for a year, but ultimately it will happen. Okay, those same people, and and I like to think about this. A lot of people who are far younger to me, okay, have come up with metabolic disturbances, all kinds of metabolic disturbances. And I had to question, why is that? Why is that they're so far younger to me? They are supposed to be very active. That is their life of blossoming, and yet they're coming with metabolic disturbances. And now I know why. Because these are the people, most of them are all working late nights. They don't have the gap between dinner and sleep. They sleep at odd times. The body has got used to it, not the brain. And they go on for a couple of years, but then after some time, it just says, okay, enough is enough. I cannot deal with this anymore. They become susceptible to all kinds of chronic conditions. They are the ones who come up with disruption in the brain-gut axis, leads to all kinds of metabolic disturbances, hypertension, Crohn's syndrome. I mean, you name it. There are a number of conditions that a lot of these people at a younger age are suffering from. So now imagine if we also have to go through that. Okay, so you may not see the problems maybe early on, but later on it will definitely show up.
I agree. In the ancient time, we did follow the sun clock, right? Like rise to the sun and then go to sleep, or before the sunrise set, we used to eat and sleep.
Right. Yeah.
That is fine. But now, because aren't we confusing our brains because of the lights, what we have, artificial lights?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So we are confusing. So what happens is the brain is confused, not knowing what to release, because you're playing artificially with the brain, and the gut is sending some wrong signals. There's a disruption of the brain-gut axis, and this disruption may not show up in a disturbance immediately, but over time it will show up as some health disturbance, whether it is problems in the physical body, whether it's problems in the brain, whether it's problems in the emotions. It will definitely show up. Okay. Unfortunately, yeah.
Thank you.
And any of these. So remember one thing, we talk about a lot about immunity, right? I mean, in the COVID, especially, we talk about immunity. Immunity is not just at the level of physical body. Immunity is at the level of mind and the level of emotions as well. And immunity has to be strong at all three levels for you, okay, to overcome a lot of these conditions, whether it's hypertension, whether it is problems with, and for women especially, I would caution women especially, once you hit that period where your estrogen levels are going to come down, premenopausal, not even post, premenopausal conditions, okay? If your estrogen levels come down, estrogen is like the wonderful, thick concrete dam that prevents the water from flowing, from flooding for women, okay? For men, it's testosterone, for women, it's estrogen. The minute that wall, even if the wall develop cracks, what's going to happen? The water is going to flood, okay? Same thing happens in women's bodies, okay? So if the estrogen levels come down, you're going to have a lot of consequences. Now, estrogen levels need not come down only when you're premenopausal. It will definitely come down if you bring in all other, unhealthy body routines, especially when you have if you have the brain-gut link, okay, if you have de-linked the brain and the gut, okay, they can cause problems with the estrogen levels as well. So, and by saying this, I'm not saying only for women, but in general, I'm saying, for women who have issues early on, this is something that you really have to look back and see what you're doing to your bodies.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, my friends?
Can I just add here that by following your practices, these things can be reversed also?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. These things can be reversed. A lot of, if you follow it for a certain period of time, I mean, it's not, most of these are natural and they are slow. And so you may not see an immediate benefit, but yes, as Chandraji mentioned very clearly, the benefits will come maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months down the line, but it's irreversible. That's a good thing about all these practices. It's irreversible, it's sustained, and it'll last for a long time. Absolutely. And, for all those of you who need a proof of that, you can see this wonderful face of Chandraji. He is a good example of that.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So how many hours do we expect for the uninterrupted sleep?
So it depends. It depends. Again, it's individualized, okay? But normally on an average, on an average, they say anywhere from 6 to 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep, 6 to 7 hours. But having said that, if you know, as we age, notice that once we are past 60 or 65, sleep is a big issue in a lot of the older generations, okay, older people, okay? And so, you know, and again, there are a lot of things we can do, but for some reason, sleep becomes a very big issue, especially as you grow up. So 6 hours is a long time. Not many of us can get 6 hours of sleep, okay? But again, if you are getting 4 to 5 hours of uninterrupted sleep, so there's this beautiful studies that people have done where they have shown what benefits are achieved and at what amount of sleep do you see that. And they notice that even if you get 4 hours or 5 hours of quality, good quality, uninterrupted sleep, that in itself is good enough because the benefits are there even with that short duration of sleep, because the short duration was not interrupted. But the problem comes only if you have a short duration sleep that is constantly interrupted. So let's say you sleep for 2 hours and then you wake up and then you don't fall asleep for another 1 hour and then you wake up again and then you go back to sleep and again you wake up after 1 hour. So it's an interrupted sleep. That, my friends, is not at all good. Okay, so even if you have 4 to 5 hours of uninterrupted good quality sleep, please pat yourself on your back because you can still work on it to get 6 to 7 hours. But even if you don't get to 6 to 7 hours, 4 to 5 hours of uninterrupted sleep is very good. You can still get the good benefits from it.
So is it a sound sleep or the dream sleep in a dream? Or
no, dream is okay. I mean, when they say uninterrupted, dreams is part of that uninterrupted sleep. So yes, you don't want to have that, but you know, most of us, even people who are practicing all these tools, will have a maximum of 30 minutes to 1 hour of what we call the dream. I mean, the fourth stage, where you don't even have dreams. Okay, but in general, dream states, what we call the gamma waves or the beta waves. Beta waves and gamma waves, sleep researchers will not consider that. Will not consider as a disturbance. They'll consider that as a part of the sleep. So don't worry if you have got dreams in that uninterrupted sleep.
So how meditation is going to affect in this part?
Oh, meditation definitely has a lot of benefits. And you know, there are a couple of my earlier GLP talks. You can listen on YouTube, and we'll bring that as a tool next time and talk about that. But yes, meditation has a lot of benefits. It does a lot of good things to sleep. It does a lot. So basically what is happening behind sleep, there's again an interplay of hormones. There's an interplay of neurochemicals, and meditation helps to regulate those neurochemicals. It helps to regulate those neurohormones that are sleep inducing. And so that's the reason why traditionally we always say it's a good practice to meditate before we sleep. But for now, I would suggest that let's not add too many things. If you want to add, that's fine. But for this month, let's just make sure that whatever tools you want to bring in, you can bring in, but make sure that sleep is going to be your main criteria for this month. And then we'll add on other things as we go further along with these talks.
And I would like to, I reiterate what Ram has said. The main thing is do not be frustrated with yourself. This is something, either you have a choice of going cold turkey and just eating at 7:30 and doing it. That's your choice. But if you're not able to do that, ease yourself into it.
Yeah.
And do it 15 minutes earlier every time. Suppose you're used to eating at 8:39, but maybe the first day eat at 8:45 instead of 9. The next day, do 2-3 days later eat at 8:30. Slowly, ease your body into it, and do not be frustrated with yourself. And the main thing is, the third point that Ram had brought up on contentment, that contentment or that the balance that you bring up onto your mental self, that itself at the end of the day will help you to go to sleep.
Yes.
That itself will be, you will bring yourself to that place where you will be able to relax and then go to sleep. And so you will be benefiting yourself. But the first point about it is be kind to yourself. Do not, do not let these things are just tools. These things are just, things that you can implement. So like what Ram said, let us focus on these three tools: the chewing the food, the sleeping, and the contentment. Those are the three tools that we will practice for this month. So that you can get that down, and then we can look at the other tools that Ram will be presenting in the future classes. So the future tools. So even though we have heard all these, like I said, it is a lot of information. Let's take it little by little.
And I like your point, Radhika. Baby steps, very good. I'm glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, baby steps is a great way. Baby steps actually brings a lot of contentment once again. So baby steps is a very good idea that you mentioned, Radhika. And for all those of us who think that we are not doing a proper job of whether it's sleep or chewing or contentment, yes, baby steps is a great way. Today, you maybe 5 minutes early, if you're, as Radhika mentioned, or 10 minutes early, and then slowly build on that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way, because that actually brings contentment.
And the thing is also, as I've talked to Chandar about this in managing the diabetes and everything. It's diarying down your, noting down what you're doing. And when you look back, you may not think that, but when you look back on the record that you have kept, you will notice how much of an improvement you have made.
Yes.
So, and that is very important. And you have to feel good about yourself in order for that to have an effect on your health and body. And, so that's important. Yeah.
Thank you, Radhika. Hopefully your medicine is going down.
Yes, it is. Hopefully soon. The sugar level has gone down. So thank you so much. Every day I bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So another question, Ramji, that may come up. I mean, I have an answer to it, but I think some people may have a question that if you eat at 7:30 and you have to sleep at 10:30, you may get hungry.
Yeah.
Whether you should eat again if you feel hungry or not.
Yeah. So, again, sleep gets disrupted. As I said, sleep gets disrupted the minute you have food in the stomach, because it hinders the melatonin production, and melatonin is required for sleep. So that's the reason why we keep a 3-hour gap between sleep and dinner, because the 3-hour gap allows the food to enter from the stomach down to the intestine. And so now the brain says, okay, now it's the time to release melatonin, which will then induce sleep. So for people who have a habit of taking that nice warm, especially in the winters, a nice warm glass of hot chocolate milk before going to bed, or for people who like to have a cookie before going to bed, it provides satisfaction to the mouth and to the tongue. But remember, it doesn't provide satisfaction to the brain, because the brain is like, aha, what am I supposed to do now? There's this chocolate and there's cookie, and now I'm supposed to release melatonin, but now I cannot do that. So now when is the sleep going to come now? So everything is going to be extended, you see? So that's the reason why once you finish your dinner, and Ayurveda and yoga talked about that. They didn't give a reason in terms of melatonin, but now we know why. Once you finish dinner, you're not supposed to eat for the next 8 to 10 hours. Absolutely. If you eat correctly, Chandraji, that I'm glad you brought this, because what happens is, and I think I brought this up in one of the earlier sessions, if you maintain good eating practices, if you do everything correctly, then what happens is, because now your body, you're doing everything correct. You're meditating before you're eating, you're calming before you're eating, you're chewing while you're eating the right time, you're eating at the right place, you're eating without any disturbance in the mind. So because everything is a good eating practice that you're doing it, there is no doubt you will not feel hungry, because you're doing all the right things. You'll feel hungry only when you do incorporate all the kinds of what we call not so good eating practices. That's when you'll feel hungry. So if you do the right things, then once you eat your dinner, okay, because you've eaten the right time, because you've eaten at the right place, because you've eaten the right amount, because you've eaten the right kind of food, okay, what happens is you are absorbing 100% of what you've eaten, which means then the body is satisfied. The body says, okay, now I don't need to eat for another 8 to 10 hours. So theoretically, you're not supposed to feel hungry. Okay, and I'll address this again next month when we talk about meal timings. That's a good point.
I can just add that I do feel hungry sometimes, but I know that I should not be eating, so I let it go. And after half an hour, then I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah. So again, there's a disclaimer here. Generally, Chandraji, not just you, but in general, people who have issues with sugar do feel hungry. Yes, and so that's the reason why, in general, what we do is while we practice all this, people with health issues, you have to take this with a little grain of salt, because you don't want to end up hurting yourself. Okay, so and especially for people with diabetics, who are diabetics or who have issues with sugar regulations and all that, yes, please don't go by saying just because Ram said I cannot eat and all that. No, because that's not going to help, because you're ultimately damaging your body. Okay, so please, if you feel hungry and you cannot hold onto it, and you have an issue with blood sugar management and all that, please eat something. Okay, this is only for people who do not have any health issues and who are struggling to find a balance between health. Okay, but yes, even for people with who are diabetic and who are having sugar issues, I mean, Chandraji, you know that. I mean, you have managed so well. Even if you feel hungry, you can overcome that. So there are things you can do. You can overcome that hunger. But at any point, if you feel that you cannot overcome, because remember one thing: if you feel hungry and you're not eating, that can throw your balance as well. Okay, you're going to have a lot of health issues. I mean, the first thing that can happen is you can go into a state of dizziness and you'll have to be rushed to the ER. And we don't want you to end up there. Okay, so please be mindful of all these factors. Absolutely.
I mean, the main thing, what I would suggest, and especially with people with diabetes and everything, if you have eaten early and you're feeling a little hungry, choose a healthy snack, like maybe a handful of nuts or almonds or something, or maybe a piece of apple, and that is something that will assuage that hunger. That this thing, it'll give some activity for your stomach to do. And you don't go for the bowl of ice cream, or don't go for the 2 or 3 cookies or milk, but choose something which is healthy. Right. Even if you have to eat, that is important to remember. So.
Yeah, but at the same time, they also say apples are not good to be eaten in the night, right? They
in
are
the night,
in the day. So
when there are so many, here, this and that, you use your best judgment. And why I'm saying apple is, I'm saying for use a fruit or something like that. At the night, it is not acceptable to have anything heavy. But if you are really, really hungry, then you can have a piece of that instead of a cookie. Why I'm saying is, make a healthy choice. The ideal thing would be not to eat anything, but if you're really hungry, make a healthy choice.
maybe just like the body wants water when it is thirsty, like when we saying similarly, maybe when the body is wanting for some food, maybe it's not wrong to just eat something. Correct. Rather than just pushing too hard, like what Mr. Ram said. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, I think if you are taking metformin or a medication that can lower your blood sugar, then it is important for you to not ignore.
Right.
But if you are not on any medication, then you can easily take the risk a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't be really, really hungry, but sometimes I feel like I should eat and I just ignore it now because I'm no longer on medication and it doesn't bother me. I've seen my readings and everything, and it's totally fine.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Ram, one more quick question to you. Just kind of out of curiosity. People with diabetes, they have the morning sweat, right? Like severe sweat. I'm not sure if we talked about it in the past. Can we have a session about it, dealing with, maybe it is sometimes dealt with low sugar, I'm not sure. So.
Sure, we'll talk about that. I mean, we already dealt with this. I think Chandraji spoke about that briefly in session 10. But yeah, we can talk about that again next month when we talk about the do's and don'ts of eating. In that, we'll try to cover this. as to what exactly happens, why people sweat, and what is the thing that we can do about that, and how to overcome that for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Namaste, Ram, and namaste, Radhika.
Hi.
Radhika already said what I wanted to say, but I will just reiterate that the concept of the three things that you mentioned today, Ram, the contentment is an absolute crucial factor. I think everybody needs to pause and redefine what is that contentment within themselves.
Yeah.
It's a journey from you to yourself. So it is basically one of the things that you define. It is whatever you have rather than looking at what is missing. I think that mental conflict that if you resolve, it helps in your sleep, it helps in your chewing, it helps in what you eat, and it helps the other two factors. So contentment, in Manisha Panchakam, Adi Shankara says, if you have that contentment, even Indra, who is the Lord of happiness in the heaven, will envy you. So I think contentment is so powerful. And I think it's not a bad idea for everyone to say, it's not like, okay, whatever. No, it's not that. It is something to say, okay, I am happy with what I have. If I have to eat today, okay, I will eat, but maybe I'll try tomorrow. That was one aspect. And the second thing with what Chandar said, this is just a suggestion. The long time back, I think Ram said how to define between a craving and a hunger. Craving is something that if it lasts more than 15 minutes, if you can hold on for 15 minutes and if it still exists, then it is really hunger. Otherwise, it is simply that bad habit craving. And so you have to define within yourself whether it is habituated or if you're a low sugar patient, that you have to define yourself. But one of the things that it has helped, and I brush my teeth after my dinner, so I don't have any cravings. You could sit and eat ice cream in front of me, but that craving doesn't come to me. That helps. Number two is, if you really feel hungry, if you're not able to resolve between craving and hunger, sometimes it helps, I think, more than a fruit, some nuts like maybe pistachio or almonds, and it also helps in chewing it. So you won't end up eating a lot at that late hour. So you take a little bit and drink water. That actually quenches your craving, and it really helps you from, then ultimately you can get over that craving or hunger, whatever it was. And also it's healthy. So it follows Ram's rule, chewing, and Ram's rule of eating healthy, and Ram's rule of being content. So you got it all.
Thank you, Ravi. That was really helpful. That was you summed it up so well. Yeah, I mean, craving and hunger, very good point that you brought about. And with regard to brushing of the teeth, I tell it to a lot of my patients when they say, we have a sweet tooth, we like to eat something in the night, and I say, okay, do one thing. After your dinner, just brush your teeth. And they're like, oh yeah, then we don't feel like eating because there's a taste of toothpaste. I said, yeah, so that precisely is the way to avoid eating anything in the night after you eat, So that's another good suggestion that somebody can take for those who feel that, they crave for something in the night. And yeah, contentment, as you rightly pointed out, it's again, we have to define ourselves. And it's so interesting because Ayurveda always, and yoga also says the same thing, from the emotions, from the mind, then the body. So, where does contentment start from? It starts from, after all, it's an emotion, it's an emotional trait, and that's what leads to the body. So if once you're satisfied up there, absolutely, it takes care of everything else downstream. So that's the reason why it's so powerful. And that's the reason why I always say, immunity is not just physical. It's at the brain and the level of emotions as well. So you have to make sure that immunity means you are strong at all three levels.
Yes.
Good. Very good.
What a wonderful session. Are there any more questions or? Thank you.
Okay. So
Yes.
we'll do this journey for the next 30 days and we'll meet next month and we'll bring
Yes.
some more tools.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely, yeah, and I just have a couple of announcements to make. Based on Ram and I had said last time that we would like, somebody had suggested having a session for children, for and youngsters, and so we have taken that seriously, and we are approaching. And like what Ram said, it would be nice to have it moderated by a youngster. So we have a couple of volunteers who we are working with, but we need your help. So if you have any particular, if your child is interested in learning about this, we want to make it kid friendly. And so you send us your questions, so then we can tailor that program to the children, and their questions and everything. It will be moderated and run by our young volunteers. And and with the Ram's advice. So we want to know what the kids want, and so that we can help them and inculcate these good habits in them. So that is very important, and we are tentatively looking at sometime in August to launch this, and so Ram is working on some dates and everything, and so we will see how that goes, and more to come. Just as on a good note that I want to, this thing is the way we had, especially with Vaidehi's summing up, it shows how the community is coming together and how we are in this journey with you. So all those suggestions, keep it, and be kind to yourself, and we are there with you. Any questions, please send us an email or text Ram or myself in WhatsApp, and we will be sure to address that, whatever questions you have. And be kind to yourself. Good luck with your journey. See you next month.
Radhika,
Thank
you
you.
were supposed to do some more announcement.
Oh, that talk about Radhika. Radhika, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
There was one more announcement you wanted to make.
The other announcement is about Sanskriti. Sanskriti is on March 26th, and it is our annual fundraiser. And I have shared the information. If you are, it's a annual dance and music program every year that we have, and we invite. It is Indian classical dance and music. So we want to encourage the performing arts with NPHC. So please if you are interested and you would like to support our fundraiser, please buy the tickets, and please come to and attend the program and support us. So it will be nice if you can do that.
All right.
And,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you all.